Modeling joinery in Rhino can be done almost exclusively with 6 commands, they being polylines, extruding curves, rebuilding curves and surfaces, setting C-planes to surfaces, sweep 1, and Boolean difference. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk through the process of creating our kitchen joinery, that being our workbench over here and our island bench that sits on top of that. And I'm going to construct these using various different methods. The biggest being one I'm going to model in place, that being the workbench, and the other one, which is the island bench, I'm essentially going to prefabricate away from the model and then bring it into the model. There is no right or wrong. These are just 2 different methods to do so. Personally, I prefer the prefab method because you can get a little bit closer to the model and really get the detail of the model and then basically just pick it up, group it, and then shove it into place. Basically, essentially as it is really done in real life. You don't go constructing a carcass on site. The carcasses are usually created in a factory somewhere along with the door panels, and it's all sort of flat packed, brought to site, and then assembled. And then your bench tops are installed on site and whatnot. But the cutting of those bench tops, they happen, in the factory away from site. So we're going to do both those methods, and then I'm going to create a few examples or bits and pieces from some references. So what we're going to look at is I'm going to create some paneling, door paneling like this, using Boolean difference. I'm going to create these shaker doors here using just extrude curve and Boolean difference. These finger pull doors using Boolean difference. And then this sort of paneling down here by using the array command. And then the similar sort of style can be applied for really complex, I guess, Hamptons or shaker style joinery. The process is exactly the same, just more detailed essentially. And then eventually, something like that. It's very finicky, but again, the process is the same. It's just repetitive. So in terms of Rhino modeling, this is not a shop drawing. This is not something that's going to be used for construction by a fabrication, by a a joiner or someone like that, a chippy. It's essentially, these are just boxes that are extruded and then we stick panels on them. So what we'll do is we'll essentially model the kicker. So the kicker board down here, we model that as one box. The carcass is modeled as another box. The bench top is modeled as another box. The joinery, so the doors and the drawers, we essentially model as one object and we copy them around and change the size of them. Basically using either move face, like selecting the face and moving them, or using scale 1D, so scaling it in one direction. And even the splashback, they're all just thin surfaces essentially. Items such as the cooktop, the sink, the range hood, your ovens, these are external models which we get from online and then insert them into our model. But we'll do that part at a later stage. So let's go into Rhino and make a start. So as always, first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to create a new layer. I'm going to call this one kitchen. And then curves, solids. Now I'm happy for you to use some other method where you might say for kitchen, you might say island bench, workbench, pantry, whatever it may be. Or you may have a joinery layer, and your joinery layer might consist of kitchen and then a sub layer which is bathroom and another one which is bathroom 2 or vanity or laundry or whatever it may be. In this regard, it's really whatever works best for you. In my opinion, I think breaking it up into zone or into room is the appropriate approach. So let's go, let's just get some, first thing to do is to get some dimensions out. So I'm going to go to my curves layer. I just want to double check the width of this. I think it's 3.3. Yep, 3.3 meters. We can see that being reported down here. Okay, because you've got 100 mil of wall either side. So really easily, the box method is super simple. So I'm going to make sure my C plane is set to world top. I am going to go to my solids layer. And I'm going to change the color of my solids layer so it stands out. I'll make it an aqua color. And then I'm just going to use the box tool. So 1, 2, and then lift it up. I don't really care how high, 3. And then it's a case of using scale 1D. So scale 1D, enter, click the box, enter. I'm going to turn off project. Click where I want to start, click where I want to end. And at the moment that depth is 700. And then I just type in the value I want. So I want to take away 50 mil for a kicker plate. So that would be 650. Okay, and then select it, scale 1D, and go the other way. So click at the bottom, click up, that's 410 mil high, and I might only want my kicker to be 100 mil. So already that is our kicker board for our kitchen. After that, I'm just going to hold down Alt to my keyboard and click and drag up so I get another box, and then we go again. So scale 1D, click, drag, and I'm going to drag that back out to 700, but we will change that. Scale 1D again, 1, 2, down to the bottom. So it's now down like that. I'm going to go again from scale from bottom to top and then drag upwards. And I'm going to type in, it would be, I got 100 there, so it'd be 750. Because the bench itself will be 900 high. Okay, now we're gonna have some drawers protruding along here. So I'm gonna move this back 20 mil. I'll call it, our doors will be 25 mil. So it'd be 675. No, that'd be 15. No, that's right, 675. Yep. Okay, that is fine. Okay, so that's our carcass. And then one more box, which I'm just going to drag up, and then scale 1D. I'm going to bring that to the front of the nib because obviously the bench top would finish flush with those two walls. And another scale again, and I'm going to make this just 50 mil high, and then I'm going to use my move tool and bring this back down. Oops, move from 2, done. Okay, so it doesn't look like too much yet. And if I go to shaded mode, rendered mode, we're getting a little bit of an idea of what's going on there. But the next bit is our doors. So I'm going to break this up into 3 because we've got essentially another kitchen cabinet over here, and I'm going to put my oven in this kitchen cabinetry over here. So over here will just be essentially 3 sets of big long drawers. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab a line. I'll use my curve. So I'm going to draw a curve, just a straight line from point to point. Oops, help if I did it point to point, like so. Okay. I'm going to click on that curve, select the curve, and I'm going to use the command rebuild. And then I'm going to put in there point count of 4. So what it does, it goes 1, 2, 3, 4. So it breaks it up into 3 even zones. This is a brilliant way to essentially equally divide up lines rather than needing to, use quick math to work it out. So I'm just going to draw a line from here up to there and a line from there to there. So it gives us an idea of how this will be broken up. Now those lines don't have really anything to do with anything yet. And actually, another thing really quickly is because I haven't set my C-plane to the surface, which is this surface, you can see I've accidentally clicked at the bottom of this line, but it hasn't attached under here. It should be attached over here, but it's coming out and attaching there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set my C-plane to the surface. So I'll click the surface, I'll just click one of the corners, go up, and then I'm going to click on both of these lines, hold down shift, and type in project to C-plane, enter. Would you like to delete the input objects? Y for yes, and then enter. And now you'll see they've straightened up on that surface. That also means now when we draw, we're going to be drawing directly on that surface. So we're not quite done with this yet. We're going to use the offset tool, and I'm going to offset this 10 mil either side. in fact less. I'm going to offset it 5 mil either side because we need a shadow gap, and I'm going to do the same on the other side. Okay, and then on the edge here, I'm going to draw a line up like so, and zoom in, select it, and I'm just going to move that back 10 mil. Whoops, wrong way. Yep, nice. And then the other way too. So these essentially are really just guidelines that we'll be using to give us some shadow lines. And then I'll go the other way, minus 10 mil, bring it in, nice. And then we'll divide this up into 3. So again, I'm going to click on this line, go rebuild. It's already got 4 intervals, so 1 draw, 2 draw, 3 draws, okay? And then we go the other way. So I draw a line from, we'll find the point. Oh, maybe I didn't complete the command. Oh no, I did. Yep. There we go. I'm going to draw straight across. And one more again. And then I'm going to do the same thing, use the offset tool. So you can see that I'm essentially drawing on this surface. Offset 5 mil down, 5 mil up, 5 mil down, 5 mil up. Okay, so we'll end up with those sorts of draws. Now, if I wanted a different design, I could just use my rebuild command and break that up into more points, for example. Or if I wanted cupboards, I would, again, break them up into more points, and I would just put my shadow lines in different areas. So that's not a bad start. And then what we'll do for cupboards is essentially I use a box command, and it can be as simple as just going like this. So I'm just drawing from point to point, and I'm going to come out flush with the kitchen top, with the tabletop. So I just hold my mouse over that, and that then creates that. And you can see now we've got a box there that signifies that is essentially, that's our drawer. Now, you could leave it as simple as that, and I could copy those around. Or we could start, doing something a little bit different with these drawers, like putting in like a shadow line or a finger pull. So that's pretty easy to do. And again, it's just a case of using, really I'd start with one and just copy this around. But I'd just be using sweep 1 or extrude, and then using Boolean difference. So in this instance, let's try that. So I'm going to get really fidgety here. Zoom select on this little door, and I'm going to go set C-plane to surface. I'll set it to this edge, and I'll just draw down. And now what I'll do is I'm going to use a polyline, starting from here, come out. I'll even go from the midpoint there, and I'll just go down on an angle. Okay, so I got a curve like that, and I might take the point here and just drag that back a little bit. Oops. Come on. You can even use the move tool, drag that back, something like that. And then I'm going to extrude that. So I'm creating a what you would call a additive surface or an additive shape. Okay, I'm just going to click on the curve and delete it. Now we're going to do a subtractive. So we'll go Boolean difference, this door, enter, minus this profile, enter, gives us that shape. So we have like a finger pull door where you put your fingers behind that and you pull that out. And then now you can take this and just copy it around. And we're going to go from this point here to that point there, that point there, that point there, and then just keep, so on and so forth. We have to do another Boolean difference around the top of our drawers as well. We want to add in a shadow line at the top of our top of the drawers. So the way we would do that, well, firstly, what I'll do is I'll finish this off. I just want to make sure I got this in the right place, because that one, these are not on the right line. And this may look a little bit more fidgety, and I mean, honestly, it is. That's why this is not my preferred way to model. I prefer to do it elsewhere and then bring it into place. This is not impossible to do, but it is just a little bit more time consuming than just sort of modeling and drawing it all in a flat plane, like on the ground, for instance, and then just turning it and picking it up, similar to what we did with our windows and doors. So I'll bring this across to here. Okay. Alright, so that's my drawers. And then as for my bench top, what I'll do is I'm just going to isolate that. That is another trick that's very useful, is the isolation tool. Isolate, either isolate, hide, and then to bring everything back, you just type in show. I use this a lot. If you're ever having an issue with a piece of geometry, isolate it first so it has nowhere to go. And then essentially that will help to make sure that, you know, if there is indeed an issue, you have at least selected the right object. I mean, I can't count the amount of times where I've tried to model something and or a student's asked why something is modeling incorrect, and it turns out that it's just because they're on the wrong layer or they're selecting the wrong object by accident. I mean, it's very easy to do, especially as the model is starting to get more complicated and we're putting in more shapes and using more commands. You can easily lose track of what exactly you're working on. Alright, so I'm just Boolean differencing that shadow line from the bench. So I'll bring that back. Okay. Now it looks okay like this, but when I actually go to shaded mode, it's those shadows that really, you know, sell the idea that that's a model, like a proper 3D model. And you'll notice too, I mean, it's just boxes and boxes. That's all it really is with shadow lines. We haven't had to model a carcass or anything like that. There's no real need to. So that's one way of doing it. And then I just place my cooktop on top of that. That's basically it. If I want to recess the cooktop, I would essentially just take the cooktop, make a box that's of relative size. So if I'm going to go world top view, C-plane. I'll just put like just a generic box like that. And I'll take this, put this on top of the bench, like that, and across. And then I just maybe like drop it down, say like, 30 mil, something like that. And then go Boolean difference, bang, bang, bang. That gives me like an inset, and I could put my cooktop there as an example. Okay. Then the process for the overhead cupboards is exactly the same. You're just using the right dimensions. And then it's really just a case of changing your door type. So let's give this a go. Let's keep going. So I'm going to go from here. Point. Oops. 1 point. This is really not my preferred way to do it. Okay, something like that. Alright, first time, this one will be 100 mil thick. Alright, that's our top component. Now, it always helps to reference some images. Now, you can reference the images that are, that are provided on Student Web with our reference place, but it's not compulsory. So if I go to our plan, okay, so that's the kitchen design that we've been working on. Now, you don't have to design it like this at all. Like, for instance, there's no overhead cupboards up here. If you want to design overhead cupboards, go for it. You still have to make sure that your island bench is the same place. You've got this cupboardry here, but it's up to you. Like, for instance, they've got a stove, like a freestanding oven and stove. But you don't have to do that. Like I've chosen to have a cooktop that's embedded in the bench, and then I'm going to have my ovens as wall ovens over here. And in fact, I might even move my fridge over to here. You've got free reign in terms of the design. As long as the cabinets are in the same place, how they're designed, how they're laid out, that's completely up to you. You know, be creative, have a bit of fun with it. And what I'm doing is I'll reference this, but I'll also reference, you know, some designs that I like. So let's do something like this with these cupboard doors. So I'm going to bring that. And in fact, what I might even do is I'm going to just hide one of these doors, take this carcass, hold down Alt, and just drag it up because it's already the size that I want. And I'll just move it from this point up to that point. And then I'll bring that down too. So scale 1D, from this point to this point, it is currently 750 mil. And I might make it 900. And that will do. All right. All right, so what we do now, I'm going to go show, bring that back. We can start drawing all our lines again. So I'm going to draw a line from this point to this point, select the curve, and then type in rebuild. And we currently have 4 divisions at the moment. I'm going to double that to 8. So we get essentially our cupboards. But actually, you know what? They probably need to be wider than that, I reckon. Sorry, narrower, because they would be actually very wide cupboards. So let's try 12. That looks better. Yep. So, because obviously cupboards can only be so wide before they don't become feasible. So with those points there, you know, what's the gap between them? On average, you're looking at 360. Yeah, that's not bad. That might actually be a little bit too narrow now. So if we go, let's go back, click on the curve and rebuild. And instead of 12, let's do 10. $470. That's not bad. Yep, somewhere in between there is fine. Realistically, they're normally between 350 and 450 for a cupboard door, something like that, just as a rule of thumb. But we got to fit in our shadow lines too. So let's go through that again. So grab my line, click once, and then what I will do this time, whoops, I'm going to hide this object just so I don't accidentally snap to the wrong object, because my C-plane's set back to world top. So I'm just going to go like this to bring it back, and I know now, because there's nothing else for it to snap to, you know, I can only go to one location. Now, I could keep going along here, but what I might do is just utilize one and then go from there. So I'll offset this again, 5 in one direction, 5 mil in the other direction. All right. And then I'll just copy that from the middle point to the middle point. All right, and then I can even take one of these cupboard doors and drag it up, and then we can just place it. Well, first thing we'll do is we'll rotate it 180 degrees. So the lip is at the bottom of the door, because these will be handleless doors. And then I'll take this corner and place it over here. And then I'm going to use scale 1D, and I'm going to go from this point all the way down to the other end and drag that back to the point that I want, like so. And then I'm going to move this up to something like that. And then go from here to here, drag it all the way up, which is 882, and I might make that 872, so we get our shadow line at the top. Actually, that's not true. The shadow line will come from the bulkhead. So I'll do that again. That goes all the way to the top. Okay, something like that. That's fine. But you can see when I've done that, I've exaggerated that to profile. So that's the thing you have to keep in mind with Scale 1D is essentially you're stretching the object. So I'm going to bring that back like that, and I'm going to utilize the face select. So Control Shift, face select, and then move the face up to this point. And then I don't affect that geometry down here. Now I need to make sure that that's selected nicely. Okay, just want to make sure you've got that snapping nice and cleanly. So that looks pretty good. And then what I'll do is I'm going to set my C-plane to surface. So that's my surface. Click on one corner, click on another corner. I'll just do it one more time, make sure that is right. Point to point. Yep, okay. And then I'm going to go polyline. And I'm essentially just going to trace around the outside of this object. And I'm going to isolate it to make sure I've got it. ISO. And then polyline. And go to each point. By the end of this modeling in this fashion, you'll become an absolute jet at modeling in 3D. So I'm going to offset this maybe say 35 mil. Yeah, maybe 40 mil. Yep, cool. I'll delete that curve. This curve here, I'm going to extrude. I don't care how much, something like that. Delete the curve, click on that. Minus maybe not even 15 mil. And then Boolean difference. The door panel, enter. The box, enter. And that's how we get that shape. I can bring everything back. And then now I go rendered mode. And that door, in fact, I just got to pull this up slightly. So maybe plus 10. Whoops, the other way. And minus 10. Okay, something like that. And then that becomes my shaker panel door, similar to something like this. And that's how we'll do our top of our cabinetry. Now, one thing to keep in mind is we still have to do a splashback. So you can just select that face of the wall and materialize it differently if you like. But I tend to find that you'll get a better result if you just model a very small box, a really thin box, and just plunk it on that wall, stick it on that wall. Okay, so that's one way to model our cabinetry. And then let's take a look now at modeling our island bench in more of a prefabricated fashion away from the main model. So the island bench will create in more of a prefabricated mode. So we'll come out of the drawing, model it up, and then push it back into the drawing. This is definitely my preferred method to do so because it just means that it's much easier and cleaner to model around. You know what your lines are, what your curves are, what your geometry is. You can clean it up, delete certain elements, group it together, then move it across. And even just navigating the model just tends to be a bit easier. But what it does mean though is that you need to define your dimensions before you get started. Whether when you model in place, the benefit to that is that you can essentially just use Scale 1D and push and pull and select face and whatever else you need to do to obtain your size, your geometry dimensions. So what I'm doing right now is I'm just doing a very bad job of modeling up our bench top. So 3.5 one way and then upwards. I'm going to make my bench top 1100 wide and then just bring that back. Okay, so that's our bench top. And again, what I'm going to do is I might even draw it in elevation So I'll take this point. I'm going to come down 900 mil. That's the height of our bench top. Come across to this point. Okay, I'll just double check that is 900. Yep, by 3.5. Yep, okay. So what I'll do is, and depends on the design we want. So I'm going to utilize a bit of a hybrid design. So let's say I'm going to do these battens along here, and I'll show you how to do that. But in terms of other stylistic design, I reckon I'll do something like this. So those battens will be in there. So it'll be a rather thick slab of marble that sort of comes up and around like a waterfall edge. That's just my personal choice, but you can do something, it's entirely up to you. So let's go. So if this is our front view, this is pretty easy. I'll offset, say, 80 mil from there to there, and then I'll explode that item, and I can just select the end point and drag that down. I can do the same thing there. I know my kicker, I'm going to offset, I'm going to explode this line as well. I know this will be offset 100 mil upwards, like so. And then I'll use my trim just to clean this up. So it's going to look something like that from an elevation. I'm going to put my sink basically smack bang in the middle. And that's fine. And what I am going to do as well is I'm going to explode this. And then take this line and offset it 300, or probably actually 400. Okay. So we have 700 space. Okay, and you'll see what that is referring to in a minute. Okay, so from there, look, really, what is on the other side of the cabinetry? So on the other side, you got a dishwasher, some drawers, and whatnot. To be honest, you don't even need to really model that because none of your images would probably be from behind the cabinet. It's totally up to you. If you want to go to that down that far, you can. But that is another thing to consider when modeling design models like this, and that is why in the last class we decided to capture our images. So, for instance, in this image, if I go to rendered mode, you can see that we have like our kitchen there. These don't really matter, but particularly the interior shots are important because they'll show us pretty quickly what we are and aren't going to see. So even in this sectional image, when we have our island bench here, you're not going to see the other side of the island bench. So you're not going to need to model it. Another example will be, it is highly likely your client is going to want to see one of the bathrooms, but they may not need or want to see both of them. Same with the bedrooms. When we start fitting out these bedrooms with furniture, you really only need to fit out one bedroom, and that's the bedroom that you're taking a screenshot of or a render of. In other words, to make life easier for yourself and to keep the model light and easy to work with, model what you have to, not absolutely everything. Again, it's not a construction drawing. Construction drawing, everything needs to be modeled because you need to document everything. Here, it's a design model. So really just use what works for you. A good example of that will be, this is not unusual even in say gaming. Like if we think about this scene, if this model was a gaming model, there'd be nothing on the other side of the wall if you couldn't jump over that wall and explore that open space back there. You'll know for sure that gaming developers will model their scenes to the absolute minimum requirements to ensure maximum performance. In a design model for architecture, the principle is exactly the same. So for argument's sake, to try and speed this up, I'm going to utilize something like that. So these lines here, or these curves here, I'm going to select these ones. I'm going to select the bottom. And in fact, I need to use the split command. So split. I'm going to select this line here because that's the object I want to split. Then hit enter, and then the cutting objects is this object and this object, and then enter. So that way it breaks up these lines because I only want those ones. So select those, and join. Go to my perspective view. zoom in, and then I'm going to extrude this out, and I'm going to extrude it 1100. Okay, so you can see I'm building my kitchen table basically on its side. I will then turn that 90 degrees, the right way maybe. Okay, and then I'll just use the move tool. That point to that point. Okay, so now I've got my waterfall bench top. And then this next bit is the much easier bit. So I'm just going to go bang there, because that's my kicker. I'll make that 100 high. But I'll make sure, in fact, I'm just going to copy and paste that. Make sure I've got this right. Turn off project. This point to there. That point, up to there. And then I'm going to move that back in 20 mil. And I'm going to move this extrusion. I gotta use scale 1D for this one. Scale 1D. There to there, and then back. So it was 700 deep, so we'll make it 650 deep. Okay, so that's my working side. So my kitchen cabinet will be in there. And then on this side, I actually want to make sure that this is flush. So scale 1D, this point. It's actually, this one needs to go back. That point, that point, that point. Alright, so that's fine. And then after that, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use a arc tool. So I'm going to go start end arc. We'll give that one a go. I mean, really, any of these will work. So I'm just going to click anywhere. I might go down here. Start end arc. And what's the diameter of that? Or the radius? Diameter 100 mil. I can scale that to its one size. So I might click from here to here. And I can bring that back. But what I am going to do is I'm going to use scale 2D. So scale 2D. And I'm going to go this point to this point and then shrink it down. So it shrinks proportionately. And I might make that a 50 mil batten. So 50 mil wide. After that, I'll zoom in. I'll extrude that up. So it's just going to be a surface. And I'll extrude it so it's equal to the height of this. And then, oops. I'm just going to take this over to here. And I'm just going to move this corner into position just there. So it's like that. And then it'd just be a case of using the array tool. So array, and I might use linear array. So number of items, I have no idea yet, maybe 50. And then it's going to ask us the first point. So the first point will be this corner. The second point will be the one next to it, like so. 50 is not enough. So we're going to need a few more. But what I could even do is maybe I could even just copy a bunch. Well, one more. Okay, that's it. It's that easy. And then when you go to shaded mode, that gives a very, very cool effect. And, you know, again, incredibly easy to do. Not hard at all. And in actual fact, if I go back to this image, you'll probably find there's a very fine shadow detail around the bottom of all of this. The easiest way to do that is to just essentially lift them all up just a few mil, or the other alternative is to use Boolean difference. So if I go to like a front view or a back view, so there's our cabinet. So there's a box. I'll bring that down. I'll turn on project. Well, actually, I won't. I'll keep that off. Use the move tool. Put that up to there, and then I might just move that up. I don't know. Again, like 10 mil, something like that. Go to my perspective view and zoom in, and then that might be all I want. Yeah, something like that. And then do the same thing. Boolean difference. I want to subtract from essentially all of that plus that. Actually, not that. That's fine. Enter. That. Enter. It's having a bit of a freak out. So that's a warning, essentially saying that I'm probably not far enough out. So I'll do this. And we'll do that again. Boolean difference. Select all of those. Plus all of those. That's okay. Alright, so if that's not going to work, there is other alternatives. So the other alternative is I'm going to select all of those buttons and this box, and I'm going to isolate them. Okay, so that's now isolated. Yeah, okay, so I think the issue might have been is I wasn't the whole way through it like that. So let's try that one more time. Boolean difference, select objects, all of those buttons, enter the box. No, still not liking it. All right, so last one. Let's explode the box. I'm going to delete these faces. Okay, so you end up with just a surface, and the surface is splicing through all of these. So what I can do is I can use the trim command. So trim, select the cutting objects. The cutting objects is this line. Enter, and then I need to go to a front view, or even a side view would be fine. And these are the objects I want to cut. So it's essentially the same thing as trim in 2D. And I just click and drag. It will take a minute and it will slice them all. Give it a second. There we go. Done. So I will click on the surface, delete it. Click on show. That brings everything back. Go to shaded mode. And we can see that there is like a shadow line underneath. This will look a lot better once it's in place. Okay. Now, in terms of the surface, again, the sink, all you have to do is just Boolean difference out of the top when we put in our sink. But I'm not going to do that until we actually have a sink. Otherwise, I'd just be guessing, and I might end up making a mistake. Okay, so the last thing to do now is to group this up and take this over to our main model. So again, I want to make sure I'm selecting all of my surfaces and none of my lines, because there's a lot of curves in here. I can see curves over here and over here, and I don't want to accidentally group them, select them and group them. And I don't want to go through and click on every single one of these and, need to isolate them. So another cool trick is you can go, because at the moment all this is drawn on the curves layer of the kitchen layer. So I'm going to right click on this and say select objects. So it selects everything, including everything on this surface, including all of those panels I made on the wrong layer too. So then I'm going to go isolate, so everything else hides. Straight away I know all of this can go on my solids layer. So right click, change object layer. There we go there. As for the curves layer, I'm going to turn this off, turn off the solids layer. Okay, so everything else is gone. I'm now going to use the command cell curve, cell CRV, hit enter, and that's going to pick up any curve or 2D line that's in this drawing at the moment on this layer. I'll then hit delete, and then I can select all this confidently knowing that they're all solids, and I can change the object layer so then it disappears. I can turn this on, and there's my other geometry. And I go show, and everything's now turned back on, all my kitchen cabinetry. I can then select this and then go group. That's now grouped together as one object, and I can now move this into place. Because this is already at the right height, I can just click on project and then just use my move tool to essentially snap it in place. So that looks good. And then I'll leave a gap between here and here of say 1200. There we go. All right, that's starting to come together. It's very basic, but it's looking pretty good. And I'll turn back on my ceiling. Okay, so we have a ceiling in there. I'll turn on shaded mode or rendered mode. That's looking pretty good. Alright, and I want to go to some of my views. So that's one of my internal views. That's another one, and you can see how even with this view we now have our bench top, but we're not far enough back that we're seeing our kitchen cabinetry like that. And if you go through architectural photography, even in like realestate.com or something like that, you very rarely see this side of a kitchen or something like that, unless it's like a side-on shot. So keep clicking around. Even this shot here, you can see we see the waterfall edge of the bench, but that's basically it. But that's already starting to come together quite nicely. So I'll go back to one of our interior shots. Okay, so after this, it's then time to start texturizing our objects. So I am currently opening in this group. I'm going to ungroup it, and I'll select my bench top, and let's go find some material. So I'm going to make a new material. I'll call this one Onyx. Assign texture. Marble. I'm going to grab this Onyx material. Pretty intense. Okay. That looks a bit cooked. Alright, and then I got to map it up. So change that to box, lock, change the scaling to probably like 500, not 5,000, maybe 1,000. That's too small still, so maybe 1,500. Still too small. 2,000. You can see this really is a case of experimentation. There's no right or wrong in this regard. Okay, 5,000 looks pretty good, but then I need to rotate it 90 degrees. That's still not great. Maybe let's try something different. Let's try surface. Okay, so surface works, but it's a little bit elongated. So let's play around with some of these sizes, which is probably the UVW. Nope. It's okay. Okay. I'm going to keep experimenting with this until we get something that we like. Because that works, but it's just too narrow. We just need to make that wider. But we just need to find out in which direction. Okay, so surface does not seem to be doing anything for us. Box might be the only way to go here. Alright, so I'm going to leave that for a minute and I'll come back to that. That's really giving me a bit of grief, but that's alright. Alright, so these battens, I'm just going to give them the same timber texture that we've been using. But, that looks a lot like bamboo. But again, let's select them. And map. And box, lock, okay, so something like that. That actually works well without seeing the lines, but if I want to change that into a different texture, I'll just have to make a new texture type for it, which is fine. I can do that. I wanted to use the same timber, but that may not be possible. So I'll go another one, custom underscore timber 2, color, assign texture. Okay. Yep, that's already pretty good. And then this material is giving me a lot of grief, so let's just change that out real quick. Replace texture, and let's just go a different type of marble. Something like that. $500, yep, something like that. That looks pretty good. Whoops, before I go show, I need to make sure that I have everything grouped again, otherwise that's going to be hard to pick up. Okay, so something like that is one example, or even that the timber within here I can change to a darker timber, so I can go ungroup. I'll just have to pick up one of these. I have to pick up all of them because I'm going to replace the same material. So here's the material, replace texture, and instead this time I'll pick a darker wood. It's the same texture, just darker, like that. Group everything together, show, and then we've got something like that. So it's not too bad. But this is really just a case of experimentation and just working away until you get it right. So really, the method to creating joinery is not that complex. It's really just time consuming and choosing which method works best for you. But ultimately, your creativity is your limit in this regard. You know, all the tools that we've gone through are the same tools that we've utilized on joinery. In fact, there is no new command for joinery that we haven't used before. But it is just really a case of, you know, Boolean difference, sweep 1, set C-plane to surface, polylines, rebuild, extruding curves, the offset command. That's really the bulk of it, and then grouping them together. And grouping them instead of blocking, because block only makes sense if we had multiple kitchens, whether the group works because we just want to stick a bunch of geometry together, but it's a one-off set of geometry. So take these different tools and techniques and start planning out your kitchen and your bathrooms and whatnot. So use the same principles and start sketching out not just your kitchen, but your bathroom and your laundry. Take your time with it, and I would suggest personally, utilizing the prefabrication method, where you model it in a different area and bring it back across. But as you'll see between the end of this class, because essentially I did this in real time, in this tutorial, I'll continue to work on it myself, and by our next recording or the next class, I'll have a lot more of a refined kitchen and materials added. But I still will not have yet, sinks, taps, cooktops, ovens, fridges, nothing like that yet. That all comes in a couple of classes time.